Robert, during your discussion and what you shared with the audience, there was a real honest moment, a particularly honest moment.
Gee, I hope most of it was honest. Or maybe 5% honest, 95% BS. I don't know.
No, not at all.
Yeah, where I revealed some things that were challenging. When things happen bad in your life, it seems like your world is crashing all around you, then literally you just have to look down and focus on the one step you take. So it's one day at a time, maybe 1 hour at a time, maybe 1 minute at a time. But you focus and you so literally that's, you know, every day happens. You get up, the sun comes up, you just have to keep moving forward. Your dreams kind of go out the window. You don't think big thoughts. You just think, how do I get to the very next day? And then ultimately, if you just keep moving forward 1 foot at a time, you find yourself, you know, across the cliff that scared you so much, and things open up and you can expand your vision, your peripheral vision, you know, broadens out, and that's what happened to me. What you were referring to was a bankruptcy that was started by an avalanche. Literally, we had a beautiful mountain home in Robert Redford's Sundance Ski Resort in Utah, and it was destroyed by an avalanche. And I had leveraged everything to buy this property and a bunch of other properties. And when it was destroyed by an avalanche, and the insurance company wouldn't pay. They said it was an act of God, so they wouldn't pay the insurance. So literally the bank, not having the insurance, called all the loans and literally drove me right into bankruptcy. And it just, you know, it just knocks the wind out of you.
Absolutely.
You just like, holy smokes, what an idiot. And you know, to risk everything. And the bottom line is I had to just, I just had to, we moved away from the city, down to California, and I started from scratch. You know, I just started all over again, totally wiped out financially, credit gone. But it's the greatest thing that happens to you when you lose everything, because then you don't have any excuses like, I don't want to do that because I don't want to risk losing all I have. When you don't have anything left, there's nothing to risk, see? And you go, well, frankly, what would I do with my life if I wasn't worried about risking? Well, I would probably do the things I love to do. I would would I still teach? Yes. Would I probably still teach real estate and entrepreneurship and money making things that I had been doing before? Yeah. Yep. I'd still do the same thing. I'd do the same thing. Would I? But I would do it differently. See, before I was afraid you wouldn't like me, so I'd want to dress nicely and I want to drive the nicest cars. But now, friends, since I'm wiped out and I'm bankrupt, I've lost my reputation, then darn it, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to actually start from scratch and I'm going to build it up. Well, what would you do? Well, you know, most people don't talk about God and higher power and all that stuff. You don't want to offend anybody. Well, since I have no more money left and I've lost my reputation, then I'm just going to say the truth for me. I'm going to teach wealth the way I believe it should be taught, regardless. You know, so what would that be? Well, that means, well, first you have to include higher power in your financial decisions, and you have to be more of a giver, and you have to say it that way. And that's the way I started to teach. Whereas before that, I never mentioned it. See, I'm a very deeply spiritual man and very, very religious, if you will, but I never dared say it to an audience.
It's almost amazing that this act of God was truly an act of God, whereby that got you to connect.
Feel the goosebumps on those arms. Holy smokes.
That got you to connect with your authentic inner self.
Absolutely.
And when you said that went through my consciousness like a rocket launcher.
It drove me to my knees. I went into a closet in a home we'd rented as they were starting back, and I didn't know what I was going to do with the rest of my life. We were just you know, financially devastated, and I fell on my face in that closet. I'll never forget. And I was saying, God, what an idiot! I'm the dumbest man on the face of the earth to have so much opportunity and have squandered it, and I never gave credit where it was due, and assumed that I was the smart one and I was the lucky one, And the bottom line was I was incredibly blessed and just hadn't really given credit where credit was due. And I had a very profound experience in that closet. I didn't see any angels. I didn't hear any voices, but I had an unbelievably, overwhelmingly loving experience where I knew God knew my name. I knew it would eventually be okay, but it wasn't at that moment. I knew I'd get out of it, and I had this certainty that I would make it. I would be okay. So from that point forward, it was the worst, best experience of my life. It was the most horrible, incredibly fantastic, a devastating loss. I would not give that loss back, that bankruptcy. I wouldn't give that back for all the money in the world I would ever earn or ever have earned, because it really connected me again. And so I started to say it, the truth that I knew, and from that point things started to get better. And
when you spoke yesterday, you said something.
The professor, standing in front of the college class, brings out a jar filled with some rocks in it, and he said, "Is this jar full?" And the kids say, "Well, yeah, it's full of rocks." And so he takes out another little tiny jar of pebbles, and he pours the pebbles inside the rocks, and it fills up with some more. "Is this jar full now?" And now they've kind of figured out, no, yeah, you're right. And he takes some sand, he pours the sand and fills it all up, and he says, "Is this jar full?" No. And he takes out another jar of water, and he pours the water in until now it overflows. And he says, "What's the lesson of that?" And they said, "Well, you can always put more stuff in the jar." And he said, "That's not the lesson." He says, "If you don't put the big rocks in first, you'll never get them in." So the big rocks, isn't that powerful? What are the big rocks? Well, the big rocks are, you put God first. You know, if this is important in your life, then why would you start the day without that first? Because if you don't put it in, if you say, well, I'll get to it later on in the day, if you don't put it in first, it doesn't get in. So today, didn't have much sleep last night. I'm going to read some spiritual concepts that are profound to me. There are a lot of great wisdom that's been written. So I want to read that this morning, which I did this morning. I want to have a kneeling prayer. I want to connect. And there was a book I saw in the bookstore the other day. It's called Help, Thanks, Wow. The 3 concepts of a great prayer.
So basic.
Yeah.
So
and
simple.
so this morning was help. Thank you. Wow, what an incredible world. And if you put that in first, then it seems like the day goes better. So when you pay first, you pay your money first, then you got it out of the way. You checked it off the list. You've been a giver. You've been abundant. Even if you don't have much money, if you give this a little bit, then the 90% that's left I call it's enlightened. And now the way you spend it, how you spend it, makes you a different investor, right? So what I was saying yesterday is that you have to be a first giver, not a last giver. Most people are last givers if they give it all. And if you're a first giver, you put the big rocks in first and things go better.
And as I've been sitting here, I have actually had tears streaming down my face, because I know exactly what it is like to have been reduced to an absolute pile of rubble and to have to claw your way back, and the emotional distress and trauma.
Yep.
And when an absolute success icon like you stood on the stage yesterday and had such an incredible moment of truth and honesty with an audience, that is a level of authenticity that can never be bought. And thank you so much for giving up of your time and coming to South Africa to teach